Good afternoon. My name's Nicole Wieserak, and I'm going to be presenting on online learning grades K through 12. Just a little bit about myself to start this presentation to introduce myself. I am a fourth grade teacher. I live in Long Island, New York, and I work in Bayshore School District. I started in this school district as a permanent sub for a couple of years and actually had that experience going through COVID-19 and really getting a good feel on what online learning is really all about. And I'm going to be touching on a bunch of those examples as I go through this presentation today. But I am a fourth grade teacher currently. I absolutely love my job, and I'm now pursuing this master's degree as a technical specialist to kind of just learn more about the digital world when it comes to education, because I think it's super important as educators that we keep up with the times. And in order for our students to be as successful as possible, it's important that we stay current as their educators to what is going on in the world. And a big part of their education is moving towards that online learning, and it is at least becoming a huge part of it. So that is why I'm taking this master's program and moving forward with the presentation. A bit of an introduction of online learning grades K through 12. Clearly, online learning is a way for our students, grades K through 12, to receive informative and learning content digitally via a Chromebook or some other technology source. So in my school, every single student, grades second grade through fourth grade, are given a Chromebook. Grades younger than that all are given iPads. Grades older, fifth grade through middle school, are given the newer Chromebooks that are all touchscreen as well, so a little more high-end tech. And then going into the high school, all students are given MacBooks, which is really awesome that they get to experience all the tech that comes with the MacBooks as well. So just to kind of tie that into my experience, um, each student, this started because of the pandemic. Students in classes were given iPads and Chromebooks that would be loaned to them for the day if they wanted to use. However, now because of the pandemic, each student is given one at the start of a new school. So in my school, it's split up kindergarten through second grade, and they'll be given one in that school. And when they transition to a new school, they'll have to return that device and they'll receive the new one at their new school. Some examples of online learning may include live instruction through Zoom, Google Meet, for example, or asynchronously through educational website platforms. So to kind of give some personal experience here as an educator who has worked through the COVID-19 pandemic, where a lot of this online learning exploded. It was becoming more popular. However, we really catapulted into it because of the pandemic. We had the opportunity at my school to use mainly Google Meet because it was a website that was safe for the children to use as well, and it went nicely with all of their Google apps that they had and their Google Classroom. So we stuck with Google Meet, and during the pandemic in my school, we were required to do a certain amount of minutes of math and reading via live instruction, and the best way we were able to do that was through Google Meet. When we weren't doing Google Meet, this was where we would give some of that asynchronous work through some of these educational websites. For example, we use a lot of iReady curriculum in my school. We use many other websites like Nearpod was a good way for us to come back together synchronously after I would read to them on Google Meet. We would collectively come together on Nearpod and have some kind of discussion as well, which was another great platform. For the younger grades, Kahoot, Flocabulary, these were great assessment tools I'm going to touch on later on, but Flocabulary was a great platform too, where students would watch videos and get the opportunity to review content I would teach them through live instruction on their Google Meet, review it in a fun multimedia video way. And the students really enjoyed it. They would put it into music and give games and things like that. So that's some examples of online learning that we're experiencing at my grade level. I know it's different amongst all grade levels. The older grade levels might be a lot more heavy, dependent as well on constantly being on their Chromebooks, or excuse me, their MacBooks, specifically in my district, but that was just a little taste of what I'm experiencing. Moving forward with my presentation, I found some nice statistics here, and all the resources will be linked at the end of my presentation, of how online learning is so versatile, and why these are some reasons why students chose learning online versus in-person learning. This might apply more so to students who have the choice. Because of the pandemic, when we went to online learning, students did not have the choice. Our school was on shutdown, and they were required to attend to receive credit for the grade, and the rest of the year they were required to attend these online learning sessions. However, as students are getting older, especially high school going into college, and they have more choice, more and more students are really choosing that online learning platform. And some of these reasons, as you can see on this little winding road here, 59% say it's because of their work schedule, and I can attest to that as a graduate student as well, since I'm on both ends of this as an educator and a student currently. I specifically chose an online learning platform because of the opportunity to be able to work and take classes at the same time. So that's a big reason that I chose an online learning grad school, is because I needed to be able to work, and a lot of classes did not work time-wise along with my schedule. 16% goes along with family responsibilities. Some students, even at a grad school or regular bachelor's level, have family responsibilities already, and they are looking to be able to balance both, and a really nice way to do that would be online learning. Some students just prefer that online learning environment. We live in a time period where we experiencing a lot of anxieties and things like that are out in the world, and sometimes it's easier to do that learning online rather than, especially because of COVID, that created even more anxieties. This online learning really gave students and educators the opportunity to put things that were most important, like their health, first. And a lot of educators and students were preferring online learning because of that. Distance to school, I can also relate to this one, being that I'm a part of this online program at Oneonta. I do not live close to Oneonta. I am out on the South Shore in Long Island in Suffolk County, New York, and I do not live close. If I had an in-person class, I would not be able to make it. So this online learning program is perfect for me. And lastly, health reasons. Some students that might be experiencing health reasons that prevent them from attending in-person classes, online learning also gives them the opportunity to still get their education while dealing with the personal things they have going on in their life. Okay, so now talking about this online pedagogy that we did do a lot of readings about, especially recently in our most recent text, when it comes to those assessments and those online assessments. However, I wanted to also tie in further research when I was doing this presentation to kind of touch and review on what pedagogy is in general. Pedagogy includes virtually any strategy that enhances the learning experience, including instructional strategies, interaction with technology, vehicles for content delivery, etc. And it emphasizes the context and interactions of the teaching and learning dynamic. So, this pedagogy emphasis on is really just strategy that enhances learning experience. So when we tie that into online learning, how can we really tie in digital, virtual, online learning and have it enhance our students' experiences? And I don't think personally that that has to do with being heavily dependent on online learning. But I think that it can really benefit if we use it more as an aid, not a crutch to their learning. Um, that's where it can really enhance the students' learning experiences. Resources found that student learning outcomes in the online procedure as compared to the traditional environment rely heavily on the instructor creating a strong sense of teacher presence and social presence. In addition, another researcher found that the relationship that the instructor makes with the students is crucial to their achievement. That goes for in person learning as well. Relationships to your students is crucial for success. So, when it comes to that online pedagogy, students, a strategy there that is crucial to really get that student motivation is to have that connection to your students, to make it as engaging as possible online because there's such little face-to-face interaction. It is important that students have that relationship to keep them motivated coming to class. So I think that's super important when we're touching on the online pedagogy. This here is a little graph talking about the pedagogical strategies, starting with technology, moving around the circle, being innovative and creative. These are some strategies when we're talking about that online pedagogy. Sharing ideas and resources, having the students be reflective in their practice, which we're advised to do as educators as well. People having openness and trust, which I just touched upon. The students, you want to have a good relationship with them, and that flows nicely into that connected community that you want to have in your online classroom. Keeping it very learner generated and peer review, right? Everything that you're teaching is all backed upon peer reviewed and scholarly evidence. Some strategies for online learning that I found through resources and from experience. Starting with strategy number 1 here. One way to help students connect to the instructor is by increasing or including instructor presence in the online classroom. Especially when it comes to our younger students, our younger grade levels. The work online cannot all just be asynchronous, using only those educational online platforms. This is where that Google Meet or that Zoom is super important because you have to give those younger students the ability to have as much face-to-face interaction as possible, and the Google Meet and the Zoom gives a good opportunity for that. They need to know who's teaching them, so they feel some kind of presence and connection to that educator. Strategy number 2, in a flipped classroom, students complete traditional assignments at home and work with hands-on and interactive activities in class. This is online self-paced lessons work well with this concept. So the idea of a flipped classroom I find very interesting because this is where students at home will complete that traditional reading assignments, learning about the content, and then it's in class. They have the ability to do more of the hands-on and interactive activities. An example for that would be in my school, we use a science curriculum known as Mystery Science. Mystery Science is an online platform, but it's also super hands-on as well and requires a lot of science materials. Sometimes to prep for an experiment that we're going to be doing in class, I will have the students read through the activity at home again first, and we'll review and touch on that activity and the reading that went along with it the next day before diving into the hands-on activity. I do this sometimes because um, this was sometimes when it comes to the school that I live in, students don't have as many resources. If I had asked them to do an activity or a project at home, I know that it wouldn't always get done. So I like to make sure they have the opportunity to do that in the classroom, because I really feel like that hands-on engagement along with that online video multimedia assistance is what connected together will provide our students with the most success. Point number 3, online lessons make great homework assignments. I can also relate to this in the way that in my school, I know a lot of teachers, we have to have our students do 15 minutes of iReady Math and 15 minutes of iReady Reading, and iReady is an online platform a day. And a lot of teachers assign those 15 minutes for their homework every single day. It's super structured for the students. They know exactly what's expected of them. They know the exact time they need to complete it, and all they need is their Chromebook to do it. So it's online lessons can make great homework assignments. Strategy number 4, provide students with links to relevant lessons for reviewing for exams. So this could be like a Quizlet. I just had my students do this for multiplication recently. I had them reviewing their multiplication facts using the online flashcards on Quizlet. Super easy. It's right there. All they need is access to the link. To click through and review their facts to prepare for the quiz they had coming up on multiplication. So online learning strategy, really great there. And through that self-directed learning, students can then review the lessons at their own pace, so which is really awesome for the students. I think that could also tie into Kahoot, which is game-based, which the students love as well. Strategy number 5, by the same token, when students have already mastered the content in the classroom and need to be challenged, you can use online lessons to give them access to more advanced content. So in math, we also use an online platform known as Zearn. There is amazing enrichment on Zearn via their Chromebooks. If they finish a lesson early, they finish their exit ticket, they've learned the lesson whole group, small group, they are always given the challenge to participate in the enrichment activities they find through the Zearn online platform. Strategy number 6, when using online lessons, students don't have to be physically present in the classroom to benefit. As long as they have internet connection, they can access any lessons online. And I think this really went to show during the times of COVID-19, where we were not able to be in the classroom and we were prevented from doing so. Students did not have to come in the classroom. All they needed was that internet connection. And if they did have it and were provided the Chromebook, which they now all are given by our school, they're able to have access to those lessons at any time online. So now diving into this instructional design template and the purpose, right? So we had this assignment for us previously. I also, before I touch on my lesson that I did for that, I wanted to touch on this little graph that I found. I liked how it described it as a tell, show, do, review. So tell, include what, why, and how, and sometimes when and where. Have students verbally summarize their understanding to the educator's satisfaction, and provide the information, knowledge, and expectations. Show, demonstrate how to do it, right? This is the modeling aspect here. Having them demonstrate it back to you to your satisfaction as an educator once again. The do, set expectations and have them do it, observe them doing it. And lastly, review, have them do it again using the feedback. Provide feedback and shape their behavior appropriately. Cycle between do and review, back and forth, bouncing between the two until they master it. Monitor results after that, coaching as required. So bouncing over now on my screen to my instructional design template, my objectives here were the students were to be able to read fluently and communicate to pupils the exclusive message of the poems they have read in our March Madness poetry unit. This was a really exciting unit for us, the students. We had just wrapped it up. A little bit into April it fell into, but Here, it's clearly the students knew the objectives of what was expected to them. They had to first identify their elements of poetry to introduce to them what we're really looking for in the poems that we're going to be reading. And I used all different kinds of online platforms here, such as Flocabulary, videos, the activity map that I presented to them, the smart notebook slides. Following that, to show, like the diagram I was just presenting showed, I read them read aloud, known as a stick is an excellent thing. We watched another Elements of Poetry video, and then we specifically had copies of poems from A Stick is an Excellent Thing mentor text, and their job was to identify the elements of poetry that we had just learned about. Moving on, topic 2 was to read and analyze famous poems by famous poets. This was really diving into our March Madness unit, where they had a bracket and they had to narrow it down between the poems that they would read written by 2 poets. They would be going head to head like a basketball game, like March Madness basketball, and they would choose which they liked best on their own. So this was that do aspect there, and the students analyzed the elements of poetry within the poem they liked best from the previous activity, and the students submit their analysis and vote to a Google form with the rest of the entire 4th grade. So it's a great thing to do community-wise as well. And to tie it all together in the unit, the students now in topic 3 were creating their own poetry. This is where students practiced using words with correct rhyme and rhythm. Again, more vocabulary videos. The students created a draft of their own poetry, applying rhyming, rhythm, practice, and then the students then created a final draft, and we always publish it to Canva for a nice visual appeal for them. So that's the importance of instructional design templates. Now moving back to my slideshow. Some assessment strategies when we had this assignment, focusing on the benchmark, summative, and formative online assessment strategies. I specifically focused on iReady as the benchmark. Summative assessments were Google Forms, and an example of formative assessments was Kahoot. So some pros of these online assessments and pros of online learning in general first. So this online learning, it's efficient, it's accessible at any time and place. Improved student attendance, no need for snow days anymore to take off the end of the year, hits a variety of learning styles and needs, improves digital skills, and overall a convenient and flexible method to learn. It saves time. You can do it anywhere, anytime, on all devices. Bouncing back to these assessment strategies, some pros when it came to benchmarking was that it was super simple to have the students just go to the computer lab and complete the assessment at their own pace, at their own time. However, some cons, which I'll be touching on shortly, as you can see right here. Some cons when it came to that benchmarking, when it came to iReady, is some students wouldn't take it as serious as we would like, because on a positive note, it was very appealing to students. It's done in a game-based platform. Students find it fun. Sometimes that can impact a student negatively, where they don't take it as serious as they should. Some positive things when it comes to summative assessments using the Google Forms. It's very simple for an educator to gather the results, to look at all the results are done for them using the computer, so it's really easy to see which students got the questions wrong or right and the grade they received. It's also great for the students and super easy for the students to access. Going on to that formative assessment using Kahoot, students love Kahoot. It's game-based. They're practicing, they're reviewing, they're being assessed without even realizing, and having fun at the same time. Some cons of online learning in general: that lack of face to face interaction that we always have talked about. Students have to be self dependent on themselves while doing their tasks. Students have to self regulate and self direct. They have a failure to focus at times, and glitches with technology, also in isolated learning. So, these are some things that can happen with online learning in general. Um, and I think that goes to show with these assessment strategies as well. If a student's Chromebook dies in class, if they forgot their Chromebook, it's harder for them to do some of these online assessment strategies like a Google form or a Kahoot. So some recommendations I would have talking about these is to make sure students understand the severity of some of these benchmarking assessments like iReady, so that they are fully aware of their expectations before going into it. And lastly, in conclusion, my name's Nicole Wieserak. Like I said in the beginning, as educators, it is our job to keep up with the times. Technology is a big part of our present and our future, and therefore, in order to better our students' opportunities for success, it is crucial that online learning is a part of their everyday education. Thank you so much for watching. Any further questions about online learning, please refer to the extra resources and sources provided on this next slide. Right here, extra resources. Please feel free to click the links below for further research and information. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.